Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm a food truck business coach and author of Food Truck 101, Beginner to Winner. This podcast is all about helping you start and grow your food truck business. Y'all know I've been doing food service for a really long time. One of the things that I like to do is stay on the cutting edge of the industry, and to do that, I read a whole bunch of material, and I read a lot. I read articles and blogs and books. Pretty much every day I'm reading something, because learning is very important to me. I recently read a Kindle book called Food Truck Business Guide for Beginners, a step-by-step plan to start a profitable enterprise. So that's a pretty impressive title, right? First thing I want you to understand is this book is written in first person, but it's really a group of researchers, and they are dispensing really bad information about the food truck industry. Some of the information that they talk about in their book is readily available on the internet. For example, the business plan chapter they have is little more than a generic copy and paste from the SBA website. They mention revenue examples, and they're all over the spectrum. The profits are laughably low for a food truck. In one sentence, they say the average is 7 to 8% profit. And then a few sentences earlier, they said the average sales were $200,000 to $500,000 per food truck. So when you apply the math, if you're on the $500,000 in sales, which they say is the top end average, and you're doing the top end 8% in profit, that yields you a whopping $40,000 a year in profit. Now, when you compare that to the number of hours that a typical owner works, that's not really exciting money. But when you list things in percentages, people don't do the math. But y'all know I like to do math. The authors of this book, the group of authors, they talk about the typical lunch meal period, and they give a time. And it's just the wrong time for much of the United States. They suggest that lunch starts around 12 p.m. and runs till roughly 3 p.m. And they even say that food truck owners plan on opening at noon. Now, if they were real food truck owners, they would know that the typical lunch starts around 11 o'clock, with the 12 to 1 hour typically being the busiest hour, but you don't want to miss the sales from 11 to 12 because those can be very good as well. Researchers wouldn't know that, but if they were really food truck owners, they would. The book was published in November of last year, but they didn't adjust for the rampant inflation of new food truck construction. They still list the average food truck as being around $50,000 to get started, and that's the construction of a food truck. Realistically, the beginner food truck is going around $50,000 now. When you start adding multiple fryers and bigger hood systems, you're getting up to $60,000 and $70,000 for a very basic truck. That's how much materials and equipment has gone up. But this book doesn't bother to even adjust for that. One of the many wrong suggestions, and this is on page 15, as employees, and this is a direct quote, as employees, we work 6 days on, 6 days off to keep our schedules as flexible as possible to accommodate customers' needs. I have yet to meet somebody that works 6 on, 6 off. You're not going to be successful. You're not going to build a loyal guest pool of people that follow you around because they're not going to know exactly when you're open. And especially somebody's going to come see you 4 or 5 days a week, and then the next week you're not available because you're taking 6 off. They're going to go eat somewhere else and maybe get into the habit of going to the place that's open 6 days a week, week after week after week. Page 34 has this non-mathematical equation. You will want to base your prices on the following equation. Cost plus profit equals price. But there's a whole bunch more that goes into it than that. This is not the accepted method of pricing a menu. Plus, there are certain costs that you cannot possibly figure in per menu item. For example, your insurance, your licenses, your cell phone. How much of those costs go into each individual product you sell? No way to figure that out because you have to have a track record. That's why those costs are considered fixed costs. They don't change no matter how much or how little food you sell. You still got to pay them, and you got to pay them at the full price. Restaurant people know this. At least the restaurant people that have been trained in profit and loss statements, they know that. Food truck owners that have been doing this longer than 1 year would also know that because they've talked to a CPA or at least a bookkeeper who's going to explain to them, hey, your prices make no sense compared to your cost. They even recommend pricing all of your menu to end on 0.95. So $10.95, $5.95. Most food truck owners tend to price in full dollar amounts, and then a handful will price on the quarter. But even an occasional guest of a few food trucks would notice that and go, hey, they price on the even dollar. Maybe me writing to end the price on 0.95 wouldn't make sense. So not only are these people not food truck owners, they don't even go eat at food trucks. And if they do eat at them, they're not smart enough to figure out that there's a pattern to be followed. So I'm going to end with this little tidbit that's on page 48. This is a quote. So let's say you are serving a dish with the ingredients that reach up to a total of $5. Then you may make it have a selling price of $7.25. Now, if you guys have been listening to me any length of time, you know that's not going to give you any kind of a good food cost. If you've been on the Facebook group, you know what that price should be. If it costs you $5 to make, at bare minimum, you should be charging $20 for it. That would give you a 25% food cost. But let's do the math on what these quote-unquote food truck geniuses recommend for your food cost. Take that $5 item, divide it by $7.25, and you get a food cost of 69%. There is zero chance of profitability if you're running a menu with a 69% food cost. Understand, if your food cost is 69%, that leaves you 31% to pay all the other bills, which will be labor and insurance and rent and loans and commissary and cell phone and everything else. And then guess what gets left for profit? You don't have to guess, you already know. It's going to be zero. And that happens to be the exact same price this book is on sale for on the Kindle bookstore. Zero. So in this particular instance, you can honestly say this book is well worth its price. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding all the information helpful to your business, please become a monthly supporter of our podcast. Just hit the support button or follow the link in the description. Every little bit does help keep us going. Join our Facebook group. It's called Food Truck Training. We got a whole bunch of awesome members at all different levels, from brand new to decades-old veterans. They've all got your back when it comes to helping you learn about the food truck business. And again, thank you so much for listening. Come back tomorrow because, I've got plenty more to say when it comes to helping you and helping your food truck business.